Alrighty, welcome everybody. It is what is today? Today is Tuesday, April 6th, 2021. Welcome to our the next audio community plugin here at Avid. We have a great one for you today. Hi everybody, my name is Greg Chin, audio evangelist for Avid. For those of you who have been joining us over the last let's see, almost a year now doing these, welcome back wherever in the world you might be. Welcome, hope everyone's staying safe. We've got a great one for you today. We've got a really special guest, one of our own, Mr. Simon Sherbourne, based in the UK, is going to be walking us through music creation. Apparently, Pro Tools can make beats. Who knew? Well, we all know, but oddly enough, a lot of people still don't quite know that. So Simon is going to be showing off some really great workflow, his own brand of music. Using MPC Beats and Reason Plus in Pro Tools, which is going to be really amazing. I got a sneak peek of what he's working on, and I cannot wait for him to share that with you guys. But before we do, again, welcome to everyone, wherever you might be. I wanted to just get some housekeeping out of the way so that all of you can get the best out of this session. So let's just do that really quickly. Let's see here. So getting the most out of the webinar, we want to make sure that when Simon is on screen, he's got your full attention. You can actually see him. You might notice if you're here registered, if you've pre-registered for the session, you're going to be here in our Zoom, our corporate Zoom application. To make sure that you get the best out of that, you can actually click on the gallery view. You can actually just look at Simon directly. He's going to be doing some screen share as well. Now, towards the end, when we have the Q&A, you might want to go into actual gallery view so you can see there'll be several of us, myself, Robert Miller, Dave Tyler, will all be here helping Simon answer some questions. So at that point, you might want to go into gallery view. But while Simon is on for his bit, you might want to go into speaker view. So you can just click on the top right-hand corner and select what you need to for the right moment. Now, if you're here in Zoom as well, you might notice that you might see a bunch of black squares or maybe some still photos of some different attendees that are here in the room. We've got quite a good number, so you might want to go ahead and hide those so that it doesn't take up the real estate of your screen. To do that, you can just click on the three little dots on the right of your mute button and select hide non-video participants. That way, all those blocks, those little screens will go away and give you some real estate back. Okay. Now, we want to say, well, again, welcome to everyone. If you've pre-registered, again, you're here in Zoom, but that doesn't mean that that's all we have. We are actually broadcasting live to all of our social media across many different platforms. So we've got our Facebook groups, so our Avid Facebook group, our Pro Tools Facebook groups. I want to say hi to everybody there. We've got LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter all live. So wherever you might be in the world, whatever platform, hello. We actually got moderators. Some of our amazing solution specialist team around the world are monitoring those platforms as well. So as you have questions, please do feel free to get them in. I'm sure whoever's monitoring those platforms are saying hello and giving you some information as well. I want to say thank you to the team for doing that. We do have an official Q&A section that we'll be doing. So if you're here in the Zoom, you can actually just click the Q&A icon in the menu bar, type your question, be as detailed as you can. We will be answering some of those while Simon is doing his thing, so as to not bother him, but we'll also save some of those up, and we'll ask Simon some of those questions at the end. So the last 15 minutes or so, we'll be able to have some Q&A. Now, same thing applies if you were on any of the other social media platforms. You can ask your questions there as well. They'll either be answered directly right then and there by our moderators there, or we'll try and get some of those over into the main session so that they can be asked and that everybody can kind of benefit from that as well. We'll get to as many as we possibly can, but we want to make sure that we give Simon all the time that he needs to do his thing. So our featured presenter today, one of my favorite people. Oh, thank you, Siri. Don't need to hear from you right now. Mr. Simon Sherbourne, based in the UK, an amazing producer. He's one of our premier audio solution specialists. He's a great writer for Sound and Sound and many other publications and blogs, and a great music producer in his own right, and also a Reason specialist. That's one of the first things I knew about Simon. And whenever I have Reason questions, he's one of the first people I go to. So with that, I will shut up and turn it over to you. Simon, thank you. Welcome. And what do you have for us today?
Thank you so much, Greg. Greg is hiding his light a little there. I know he's a big Reason expert as well. But yeah, thank you so much. I am so excited today to talk to you about a couple of really legendary music production tools and how they integrate inside Reason. And in particular, I want to show you how I use them and just really play with some of the features and have a bit of fun and hopefully show some stuff that might be inspirational with that you can get out of these tools. So I know Greg, I think already mentioned that we're teaming up with the guys at Reason Studios so that they're going to offer everybody a 90-day free trial. Not really a free trial, but a first 3 months free of their Reason Plus service. So definitely go and get that. You'll love that. And then if you love it, you can carry on and sign up after that. And then the other thing is MPC Beats, which is the software version of the MPC, which we're going to be playing with. And that is free to download and use up to 8 tracks per project. And so, you know, both of these tools, I'm sure that many of you watching have used both of them, but you may not have used MPC Beats, which is, you know, the kind of software back end of the MPC, and you may not have seen Reason in Pro Tools. So I'm excited to show you how that works. Pro Tools for me is the kind of center of everything that I'm doing here. It's like my mixer and my monitor station and where I record everything. And I've got, you know, some hardware and virtual instruments. So to get these other workflows into Pro Tools, things like beat chopping and drum machines and step sequencing, you know, it's really quite inspiring, different new ways to work. So what I'm going to do is we're going to start with the MPC. So MPC from Akai, you know, legendary piece of kit. Most of you probably know it as a standalone piece of hardware. I am going to flip my camera so you can see I'm actually spoilt today because thanks to the Akai guys in the UK, I've got an MPC X here that I can play with, but I'm going to be showing you the software engine. So what I normally do with the MPC and some of the other hardware workstations that I like to use, I like to start projects away from the computer, and I'll sit at the kitchen table or you know, outside and come up with some ideas. And then when there's something that I've got that I want to work with, I'll move that into Pro Tools and capture those ideas and then just basically develop them into something that's more like a finished arrangement. And I'm going to show you exactly how I do that. So one of the nice things about having the hardware MPC is that in my projects that I save on here, I can immediately open in Pro Tools. All I have to do is connect up the hardware to my computer via USB, and those projects will be visible. If you're not using an MPC hardware station, if you're using MPC Beats on its own, you can just work directly in Pro Tools and you can use any MIDI controllers you've got to hand. So I'm going to stop talking so much about it and show you now. So let me share my screen. Okay. So hopefully what you'll be seeing now is, apart from the back of my head, you'll also be seeing an empty Pro Tools session. So normally when I'd start this process, I would use some kind of a template or a track preset, which is going to bring in everything into Pro Tools and let me start working straight away. Today, I'm going to start and build it bit by bit so you can see how this works. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add an instrument track in Pro Tools by option double clicking. And let's add MPC. So I'm just going to start typing MPC Beats. Now you'll see in here that MPC Beats comes up a couple of times. This is the actual plugin itself. And this is my track preset that I use. So normally I would just drag that in, and you'll see why in a moment when I show you the rest of my workflow. I didn't actually choose MPC Beats there, but let's do it. So essentially the software engine that runs inside the standalone MPCs runs as a plugin as well. And it does absolutely everything that the hardware versions do. MPC Beats does everything normal MPC does, except for the 8 tracks kind of ceiling on there. All right, what you can see now is an empty MPC project inside Pro Tools. So this is the MPC plugin. which as you can see has a nice color match to the new dark mode in Pro Tools. And I'll show you a little bit more about what's going on in here, but let's open a project. So from the file browser down here, I can see this. Now this is the SD card that's in my MPC that's mounted on the desktop, and inside projects, that's all the projects I've been working on. Beats Community is the project. And with any luck, you should be able to hear some sounds. So basically what you're looking at here is the MPC main view, which is showing me one track from one sequence. So inside MPC, I have multiple sequences, and these are basically scenes or snapshots or song parts. So I've stored a few different song parts, and then within that, there's a number of different tracks. So I can control them from the mouse, or I could control them from my MPC hardware. So I can actually flip through my tracks from here. Or if I'm using MPC Beats without hardware, I can map any of those things onto whatever MIDI controller I've got. So I can map to the pads, the control knobs. I can map to my different modes and views and transport so that I can get more hands-on with my controller. Okay, so I'm just going to, just to show you what I've got running in here, I'm going to switch to a sequence where everything's kind of running because I've got some tracks muted. And then, so track 1, I can trigger this from my keyboard or from my MPC. Okay, that's a drum kit. Let's scroll through. I've got another track with some. I got locked up. Got some vocal samples which seemed appropriate. I got locked up. These just actually happen to be on the MPC factory library. Got a pad. I've got a bass line. So as you can see, it's focusing the software one track at a time, and whichever track is up, my MIDI keyboard is going to play. I can also switch to the program edit view, which is going to let me edit the sounds. So this is one of the internal plugins inside MPC Beats, and I can control that from here. And I've got that mapped up on the MPC as well. There you go. Let's get back to here. And then I've got some chops. So again, one of the classic things to do with an MPC is to record in a sample or a loop and then chop it up. So that's what I've got going on here, which you can see if I go into the chop page. Basically, really nice trick to just chop up a sample, but not every single transient. And then you can very easily create some break beats or drum and bass type grooves just by sequencing these chops. There we go. There's that. So that's kind of the different tracks I've got in the MPC. The other main view that I'm going to show you in the software is the program mixer. So if I switch to this view, you can actually see, I'll zoom this out smaller. These are all the tracks that I've got, and each sequence has got a slightly different set of things going on. And then at the bottom here is my program mixer. So these are all the sounds that I'm using with the plugins that they're using. These Air plugins, by the way, they're the same plugins that we have as part of the Pro Tools standard set of plugins. Okay, so let's have a look what we've got going on. So what am I going to do with this? Now I could, I could work with this. I could work with the MPC Live in this track. I could sequence it alongside what I want to do. Another way I could get this stuff into my Pro Tools project is to just pull the building blocks into my session. And if you watched a few weeks ago, Greg was showing some of his music workflow with Machina, which works really similar to this. This workflow kind of applies to that platform as well. And what Greg was doing was creating loops and building blocks inside Machina and then dropping them straight into tracks in Pro Tools and building from there. And I can do that too. So if I was in my main view, let's just switch to track 1. Let's just do that in sequence 2. 2. I can, similar to machine, I can just click little audio render button and it's just going to create a loop out of that section. And let me drop it into the track. If I zoom in, you'll see I was really far zoomed out. That's basically taken this building block, dropped it in as an audio track in there. And I could do the same. I could also drop MIDI in as well from my sequences. That's a great way of working. I'm going to do something slightly different this time. So I'm going to delete that track. So what I like to do when whether I'm working with the MPC or whether I'm working with the hardware synths is actually try and record something into Pro Tools Live, because I just find that's a much quicker way of getting a starting arrangement that I can then work with and chop things up, rather than trying to build things from blocks on a screen, which I don't tend to do very well at. And it also means I can capture quite a dynamic performance. I can adjust parameters as I go. And anyway, you'll see. So I could do that as a stereo mix, but I actually want to multi-track all of this out. So in Pro Tools, I'm going to capture the output of all of these channels individually. And you can see in here that they're all currently mixing out to outputs 1 and 2. And I'm going to change that. So the MPC plugin has 32 separate outputs that I can route to anywhere in Pro Tools. And as we'll see in the Reason Rack plugin, you can do exactly the same there as well. So let's get the bass line's going to be out of 11 and 12. My vocal samples 13 and 14. And this last program's not actually being used. So I've got 6 elements, and I need 6 tracks to capture them. So in Pro Tools, I'm going to create 6 stereo tracks. We'll call them MPC. So here we go, 6 tracks. Now I need to route from these buses into here. These tracks I've already selected, so I can use the Pro Tools shortcut Shift Command Option, which will essentially cascade any selections I do and sequentially change the settings. So if I hold that key combination down, come into the input selector and choose plugin, you'll see my MPC Beats plugin. I'm going to choose 3 and 4. And now these channels will all be taking their inputs from here. I'm going to input monitor those tracks, and now you can see that my drum kit is coming in here. I've got some vocal hits coming in over here. I switch to another sequence where there's a lot more going on. Not that much more going on. Let's try a different one. There you go. So you can see a bunch of stuff coming in on separate tracks. So all I need to do now, I'm just going to hit return to go back to the start. I'm going to throw everything into record. And I'm going to record. I'm just going to record what I'm doing in MPC. One feature in Pro Tools that I do use a lot is the fact that I can record automation at the same time as I'm recording audio. So quite often I'll have my S1, which is behind me here, set up as well, so that I can mute and fade elements in real time, and that gets captured as automation while I'm doing this bounce. Right, let's go. Let's get set up. I'm going to start back on sequence 1. I'm going to go to a kit that I can actually play. And I'm going to set up my chaos pad effects on here. Now there's quite a lot of latency between what I'm doing and what I'm hearing through Zoom, so this could be awful, but let's see what we get. Right, I'm going to hit F12. I'm going to get a count in. Something like that. Okay, there you go. I got a bit carried away there. I thought I was going to do about 1 minute, but we've got about 1.5 minutes. All right, let's just tuck this away for a moment. Okay, so this is what I've captured. So you can see if I bring everything out of record, I can actually play back what we got. And you can see reasonably straightforward where I've changed and gone between my different sequence snapshots. And what I probably would do is just very quickly cut that up a little bit, just by clicking in the time ruler and on bars mode. And I can also see pretty clearly where there's nothing happening on tracks. So at this point, I would normally just tidy up a little bit. Boom. There you go. And there you go. So that's obviously we want something a bit longer, but we've got the beginnings of a track arrangement. Here we go. So what I could do now is I could start building an arrangement. I could do some overdubs with more stuff from the MPC Beats. But I am going to swiftly move on and switch to showing you some stuff in Reason now that we've got some stuff in Pro Tools. So Reason, yeah, again, probably doesn't need much introduction. It's been around for a really long time. It was the original kind of virtual studio rack. For a long time, Reason on a laptop was my complete setup. I've used it with Pro Tools for a long time using Rewire, where you sync up Reason as a standalone app for Pro Tools. But then since version 11, Reason Studios produced Reason as a plugin, so I can open the rack inside Pro Tools, and that really opens up what we can do. So I want to show you a few different things, but I'm just going to start by opening Reason into an instrument track. There's two different versions. There's the Rack plugin and the Rack Effects plugin. Rack plugin is great for instruments, and the Effects plugin is if I want to just process an existing track. So there's Reason, the plugin inside Pro Tools. So as you can see, it is a virtual rack, which I can add modules to. And there's a few suggested starting points here, but this is by no means everything. If I open the browser, you can see all of the instruments and effects that I can actually use inside the rack, and I can combine them. Just to give you a quick example, there's MPC style drum machines. There is Roland style drum machines, which with a step sequencer. Yeah, like that. For that way of working. Again, obviously it's synced to Pro Tools. There is a little icon here actually, which is worth focusing on. So similar to what I was doing in the MPC, if there's anything with a sequencer in it in the rack, I can drag that as MIDI directly straight out into Pro Tools. So there's that. There's loop players, there's synths, analog synths, wavetable synths, all kinds of stuff. As well as extras. So these are all the built-in things. If you have Reason Plus, which is the kind of subscription service, then you get all the extras as well. And then there's add-ons from third parties. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to drag in the Europa synth. This is a wavetable synth, one of the newer instruments in Reason. And I just want to show you how you can use any of the instruments in Reason just like a plugin in Pro Tools without, you know, actually having to do anything or set anything up in the rack. That will just work straight away. And I'm going to use this to make a bass sound. So let's open up the browser and go into the bass patches. We've got that going on. nice. I'm actually going to use this backtalk bass, which is one of my favorites. Grungy digital bass that uses a 8-bit game waveform. All right. And so just like any other time in Pro Tools, let's just find some kind of an in point. Let's make a pre-roll and record on that track. This is all kind of based around A, this track. That's about all I've got to go on. Actually, what I'm going to do is have a click. Let's do that. Okay, 2 bars, click. Okay, so yeah, a bit of struggling with the latency a little bit here, but not too bad. I'm hearing it through Zoom. So I can quickly tidy that up. Let's just have a quick look at that in the MIDI. I did an extra bum note there, which I can fix. Everything else looks pretty much in time. It's probably fine. Try that. Okay, so I can very quickly fix up that, and that's basically how you'd work with any virtual instrument in Pro Tools, but doing it in Reason. We can turn this down a little bit. Okay, so let's look at something else. Let's make another track. Get rid of my click. So this time, I'm going to open up the mono bass. This is one of the newer things in Reason as well. It's actually in the Reason app. So you can, if you use this particular plugin, you can use it on mobile as well. Okay, and again, I could play that straight away. It's going to make sound. But let's, instead of playing it by hand, I'm going to use a sequencer. And there's a couple of ways I can do that in Reason. We've got players, which are things like arpeggiators and note sequencers and chord generators, which you can attach to any instrument. Or you can do what I'm going to do, which is go old school and use like an analog style sequencer. So let's have a go. Solo this. Let's move it all up. And then I can drop some notes, I can high notes. You can change the speed, you can change the number of steps, so we can get kind of polymeters running. Okay, so yeah, again, different kind of workflow. If you'd like working with step sequences, it's right there in Pro Tools. And any of these sequences I could also route out of the plugin and into another track and use this sequencer to sequence a different virtual instrument, which is handy. Okay, let's try something else. I just want to show you lots of different things. Another Reason. Okay, another empty rack. This time I want to show you one of the Reason Plus instruments that's just been added. This is the Algorithm FM synthesizer. Super easy to use. FM synth. Now I want a kind of a higher pad type sound to come in, something a bit ethereal. I'm going to start with something from here. This one's nice, but it's a little bit much, so I'm actually going to go with this one just as a starting point. So let's just record something and see what we get. Would help if I could hear the click. Do that again. Not quite what I had in mind, but it'll do. For our purposes, again, if I want to tidy up, I can just double click it, drop into the MIDI editor. But I'm going to leave that alone. Okay, so the problem with this sound is that it's a little bit too nice. So I want to show you how you can start combining devices inside the Reason rack to create new patches. So let's look at my effects that I've got in here. I want to grunge this up and kind of bit crunch it. And I'm going to use the scream effect. Solo this might be quite loud to start with. Something like that. There we go. So that's that. Now we'll also add some reverb. So let's go back to my effects. There's a very nice reverb in Reason. Let's just choose something random. There you go. It's totally random here. Okay, so that's how I've set these up. Now notice that as I add these things, they're just kind of automatic routing like inserts of effects. Now the real killer thing in Reason is that I can adjust that. So I can actually turn around the gear rack and cable things manually here. So I could, for example, I could change the cabling inside the rack. I can also change how it comes out to Pro Tools. So we've got this I/O device, which everything is currently coming out as stereo into Pro Tools. But again, like MPC, I've got these 32 outputs. If I recable things to here, I can pick them up on other tracks in Pro Tools. So I could use that with the drum machines, for example, to kind of route all the sounds out individually and capture and mix them in Pro Tools. Okay. Let's see what else we can do. Oh yeah, so it's not just audio, it's also CV, modulation connections. So it's kind of, you know, the same idea as a classic modular synthesizer in that I can actually take any parameters that are modulatable and connect them together. So I'd like to modulate this parameter, but the Scream unit doesn't offer that built in. But if I turn the rack around, I can see that there is a modulation input for the parameter 2 control. And that could be modulated from anything else in the rack. I could create an LFO device and do that, or as it happens, the algorithm synthesizer has got some CV outputs, so let's use one of those. So I'm going to connect that. If I flip around, now I can actually use the matrix here to route LFO1 to CV output 1. I'm going to turn that speed down. Okay. There we go. So I'm just trying to grunge everything up, go for a sort of dark, garagey type sound. Right, I think I've got time for one more thing to show you, which is how I can use some of these ideas to affect things I've already got in inside the session. So I want to grunge up the drums. Let's solo up the drums. So I'm going to add Reason as an effect on the drum track. So now this drum track is automatically routing through the Reason rack. And if I do something like add the pulverizer effect, it will immediately start working. So let's turn this down. Yeah. I can filter that, grunge it up. Another one I really like is the transformer. This is like a convolution effect I can do all kinds of weird stuff with. But I'm going to use it to add a vinyl sound, which just really just crunches it up and adds some crackle. And I can tame that a little bit using the bus compressor. So if I bypass my rack now, that was the original sound coming from the MPC. And that's what we got now. Likewise, I can do more stuff with these. This is the last thing I want to show you, but it's just too good to skip. I'm going to add the echo. Like, this is a really nice tape delay that's in Reason as standard. I think we've run out of song. We did. I'm going to go for this dreamy voice setting, which is like a real Boards of Canada style effect. There we go. And that leaves us with something like this. Okay, so you can probably see tons of fun. I'm going to have to stop there, or else I could just keep going. So let me stop my screen share for a moment so that I can see you all and I can see Greg. And I have just kind of been having fun here, so I have no idea if we've got any questions or other stuff going on.
We didn't hear any of that, Simon. No, that was immense. No, that was massive. Thank you so much, Simon. That was absolutely incredible. So we've been answering some questions that have been coming through. So thank you all for that. Keep them coming, because now Simon is full attention is here. And I'll kind of kick things off. Thank you again, Simon, for showing us that. I mean, I think the ability to, obviously Pro Tools is a great platform. Everyone knows it's kind of the industry standard. We hear that all the time. Folks are really used to, doing a lot of recording and mixing, editing in Pro Tools. When it comes to music creation, obviously, I think that's one of the things where folks start thinking, oh, well, maybe I'll create stuff over here and then bring it in here, which of course, that's perfectly legitimate. But I think one of the things you've just kind of shown is that you can actually feel very comfortable, even if you're not using some of the stuff, that's baked into Pro Tools, which is some great stuff. You've shown us some of that, but if you're comfortable with some of these other tools, such as Reason or Reason Plus and MPC Beats, you can actually really beautifully integrate that stuff and continue with your normal way of music creation and still leverage everything that Pro Tools has to offer. So, I thank you for showing that. I did have one question I wanted to ask that came in a couple times in a couple different ways around the MPC Beats. So first of all, MPC Beats is absolutely free, correct? I mean, that is something you can go and download right now. Obviously, you're not getting the hardware with it. Right. None of the, there are different iterations of the MPC hardware that exists today, but MPC Beats itself as a plugin is absolutely free, right?
It's absolutely free, yeah, and it's really powerful. It actually, has all the features of MPC in it. It's limited to 8 tracks, 8 programs. I was only using 6, today. And yeah, it actually has quite an extensive MIDI mapping feature as well. So even if you're not using the Akai hardware, you can sort of recreate a lot of that hands-on focus. Obviously, when you do add the Akai hardware, it kind of does that seamlessly, but you know, they're not holding you back through the plugin at all.
Great. So, and apologies for my lawn services here. Welcome to the world of remote home, working at home.
The funny thing is, it's actually, I got really distracted because it started snowing really hard here. So Florida versus the middle of England is.
I wish it were snowing here
today.
I wish it were snowing here. So a couple of the questions around MPC. So one of the other questions that came in is around the MPC, that famous MPC swing, right? That the swing quantized feel. So obviously we do have that built into Pro Tools. We have via real-time properties. We have a lot of those different variations on the percentage of the MPC swing. But someone was asking on one of the social platforms, if it's the same as the classic MPCs. My answer to them was going to be, and you might be able to either correct me or add to it, is all the MPC swing is really based off of the original MPC 60, MPC 1000, and different variants over time that they've made to the MPC 1000, 2000, etc. But it's really all based on what the original MPC swing was. So would I be correct in saying that they're just really different, smaller variations as time has gone on? Or anything I should know specifically, or they should know specifically about that?
So, I mean, I don't know how much the MPC swing itself has changed over the years. What I do know is, obviously the MPCs that we have now have that swing in there, or time correction as they call it. And we have that in Pro Tools like, as you say, you can do a real-time MPC swing. And my understanding of those swing settings in Pro Tools is that we did sample, we basically sampled them from the original MPCs. Pro Tools has this amazing beat detective feature where we can analyze loops and beats and then create groove quantizers, templates from them. And that's basically exactly what we've done with all the various classic swing settings that we have in Pro Tools.
Yeah. Thanks for that. So yeah, really over time, it's just been small variations. Akai have made small variations over time, but basically it really is that, whether you're working in MPC Beats using the real-time properties, the stuff we have there, it's all really it's that classic MPC swing. So one more on MPC specifically, and then we'll move over to some of the questions around Reason Plus and Reason Rack. So where did it go? Someone was asking if MPC software is similar to the iMPC, which was the iOS version of MPC. I think the answer is kind of some similarities, but really it's a beast, right?
Yeah, they're quite different. Yeah, the iMPC is its own thing. Obviously it follows the same kind of project structure as MPC, and you can export projects between the two, but they're pretty different. And the plugin version of MPC is MPC. That is what is running. My hardware MPC is running that software internally, and so the plugin is the same code. Yeah, it's the same it's similar to with Machina and the iMachina. They are kind of separate projects.
Sure. Yeah. So meant to have some level of similarity, at least familiarity, but really it's an entirely its own thing, its own a different beast. So I hope that answered that question for that person who was asking that on one of our platforms. So here in we'll jump over to some Reason questions here in our registered Zoom. Peter, forgive me if I say your last name incorrectly. Bride. How do you delete an instrument in Reason Rack? That's a pretty simple one. Simon, you want to answer that one?
Yeah, yep, delete key will do it for you. So actually both of these plugins quite intelligently, will use the keyboard when they're focused. So yeah, if you select an instrument in the Reason Rack and hit delete, it will delete it. Simple as that. Or you can right click. So there's a couple of different ways of doing it.
Beautiful. Thanks, Simon. Someone was asking on, don't know if this was Twitter or Facebook, I can't really tell. How many Reason Racks can you load into one Pro Tools session? So I think, originally pretty much for any plugin, the answer is normally going to be, well, it really depends on your system, how much RAM you've got, what your system is capable of. But, and again, I'll turn it over to you, Simon, but I'll basically say that, I use Reason Plus, Reason Rack pretty extensively in Pro Tools. I've used it in the last couple of records I've done, and I've been able to instantiate quite a good number. However, I would say that you actually typically don't need to instantiate that many, because there's so much you can do and map out directly from Reason into Pro Tools without having to instantiate a bunch of them. So, my recommendation would be, really work with, start with one and do as much as you can there, and get it out into the Pro Tools mixer. But I'll turn it over to the master, to you, Simon.
Yeah, no, I think you've covered it pretty much. It's interesting, actually, difference with MPC. So MPC, the plugin is designed to be, do you have one instance of it in your project and split it out, where the Reason Rack is designed to be used as many times as you want. So you can have one and split out an instrument. There's a single MIDI input to each Reason Rack plugin. So you would normally have a separate plugin for each instrument that you want to play. But then, yeah, there's like you said, there's no real limit to how many. And Reason is kind of very well known for being efficient, especially, if you use some of the earlier instruments that are in there. If I think of the machine that I used to run Reason on, it could barely run Word, let alone Reason.
Great. That's awesome, Simon. Thank you. So we've got another one here, here in the room, in Zoom, from Mauricio Duarte, who wants to know, can you MIDI out from a Reason Rack to another MIDI in Reason Rack? So MIDI out from one Reason Rack instantiation into a MIDI in to another Reason Rack that's instantiated, I guess, on a separate instrument track, I'm assuming, is what he's asking.
Yes, via Pro Tools track routing, you can do that. Yeah, so basically the MIDI sources in the Reason Rack will appear as track input, instrument track input sources in Pro Tools. So if you routed that to another track with a Reason Rack on it, then you would get it through that way. But you can't do it kind of directly. You can't directly talk to each other. It has to go via Pro Tools. And that's a plugin thing for all of the plugins that work like this across all DAWs that I know. Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you. So a couple other things coming in regarding CV, Simon. Do you typically tend to you showed a little bit of that CV workflow, assigning an LFO. Do you use a lot of the CV functionality in your own workflow, and do you find that it's efficient? How do you like it?
Yeah, I like tinkering with it. It's just brilliant fun to do that, to hook the things together and to see what happens. One of the more recent instruments in Reason, which is called Complex One, they actually kind of, for the first time, they had patching on the front panel. So then you've got a kind of a semi-modular synth that you can patch on the front, and that's quite fun to just have everything in one place. But it's just fun to cable things together and see what happens.
Yeah, sure. That is the fun of it. So we've got a question here that came from YouTube, and I'm not exactly sure. So what's the difference between MPC Beats and 2.0? I'm not exactly sure what 2.0 they're referring to. Maybe you know what that is.
Maybe they mean, I'm guessing maybe they mean just a normal version of MPC.
Okay.
Which is currently on 2.9, I think. So they're kind of edging closer to version 3 of MPC. But yeah, so basically MPC Beats is essentially identical to the current version of regular MPC that you would get with a hardware MPC. So yeah, there's the only limitation on it is 8 tracks, so 8 parts essentially that you can work with at a time. But yeah, otherwise, if you know how to use MPC, you'll be able to use this, and if you've got an MPC, it will control it.
Beautiful. So we've got MPC. Yeah, they were asking about MPC 2.9. So yeah, you just asked that. Thank you for that clarification. All. So we've got a couple more minutes here left. So I think we can take a couple more questions, and I think I see them kind of coming through. I'll kind of go back to you, Simon. A couple months ago, you did a session kind of starting a how to start kind of setting up Pro Tools and creating a song. What are one or two tips that you could give someone who's just starting off? Maybe, you've got someone who is familiar with MPC, or they're very familiar with Reason, and that's kind of been their workflow for a long time. And maybe they're interested in getting, and you've kind of shown, really jumping in and music creating in Pro Tools. But what are some things that you might recommend for someone who's kind of getting started in Pro Tools? They're going to maybe use MPC Beats or Reason Plus in Pro Tools, but kind of getting them over the hump of kind of getting started and getting set up. What are some things you might recommend there to help them get started when they open up Pro Tools?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I think first thing is I wouldn't worry too much about trying to recreate what you do now in Pro Tools. Pro Tools is kind of brilliant at being a blank sheet of paper, so it will let you do what you do best in your current stuff, and give you a place to capture it and mix it. If you want to get into actually using the MIDI features inside Pro Tools, then yeah, it's definitely worth just looking at a couple of the basic settings in Pro Tools, things like how the transport works. We have this thing called dynamic transport, which makes Pro Tools navigation a little bit more like a traditional MIDI sequencer. That's really key. What else would you say? Yeah, I guess watch the videos that me and Gaurav did. I'm getting
sure. Pro Tools tech tips. That's a great place to go. Yeah, your videos, Gaurav's videos for sure. No, that's a good start. And I think that's good essential information for anyone kind of getting started. So yeah, thank you, Simon. So we've got a couple more, and then we're just about almost out of time, but I think we can get a couple more quickly in there. So one of the questions that came in is, can the beats or the project and MPC Beats be transferred between different plugin formats? Thank you, long guy. So I'm assuming what they're asking is if you're on the AAX version of MPC Beats, if you can save a project and take that project and open it up in the AU or VST version.
Yep.
The answer is yes.
Yeah,
right?
definitely. Yeah. In fact, what I've been doing today was I opened the project from my MPC directly, and if I saved that from my project in Pro Tools, I would be able to open that again on the MPC or any other plugin platform. Yeah,
perfect.
They have really nailed that workflow in terms of letting you share what you've done and just kind of move around.
Sure, yeah, that's an important one. So someone else was also asking if there's an RTAS version of MPC Beats, which there's not, unfortunately. Yeah. MPC Beats was created. We were already in AAX land, when MPC Beats came out. RTAS is no longer a plugin format that we use in Pro Tools, so we've moved on to AAX. So therefore, there is not an RTAS version of MPC Beats. So, and last question, this one came from Aubrey on YouTube. Hello, Aubrey. Any Pro Tools Melodyne and MPC workflows? So the one that comes to mind right now is audio to MIDI, which is that I'm sure that works. That's anything that comes to mind for you, Simon and Long Guy?
I guess not directly like you say. They're both kind of, you can use, if you capture stuff like we've been doing today, then you can use all that Melodyne stuff on it.
Yeah, more to come there, on the Pro Tools side, and I think that we'll open that up and make that even expand that in greater detail. So continue watching this space, I guess is what I'll say. So I think we're just about out of time. I wanted to Simon, any parting words from you for the audience before we? Yeah,
I would just say definitely go and download MPC Beats, go and sign up for the 90 days of Reason Plus, and take full advantage of the generous offers that we've.
Absolutely. Yes. Simon, again, thank you so very much. That was absolutely incredible. As you've mentioned, actually, if you've registered for today's session for the Audio Community plugin, one of the great benefits of registering, I mean, obviously, regardless, we stream it live, everyone has access. But, if you registered, for those registrants, you've already gotten an email from Reason. You've got a 90-day, you've got 3 months free of Reason Plus that the folks at Reason Studios have been so generous to offer. So thanks to Reason for that. So you'll get a reminder email with the details. So make sure you go check that out. And as Simon mentioned, when you're loving it, if you want to continue your subscription, you've got your first 3 months free. So again, thank you to Reason. I want to thank the folks at Reason Studios and Akai. Thanks to all of you, wherever you might be. And again, Simon, thanks to you. Make sure, we've got some other ones coming up. You can always sign up. We'll get the word out. Do register. If you want to go back and watch this one will be available in a few days, or any of the other ones any of the other audio community plugins that we've hosted over the last year or so. You can actually find them. There's a link here, avidblogs.com/audio-community-plugin. So you can go back and revisit any of the previous plugins that we've hosted. Again, thank you to everyone. Simon, thank you. Wherever you might be in the world, please, everyone, stay safe. We will be back in a couple of weeks with a new one. And until then, wish everyone safety, be well, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody. Cheers.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Greg.